All right, let's get started. Hi, I'm Abby. I'm a producer of comedy and entertainment. Um, Today, I'm going to be having a conversation with Lucy Powell from the Film and TV charity about some of their new services. Lucy, do you want to introduce yourself?
I will. Hi, Abby, and hello, everyone. It's great to be here. So, my name is Lucy Powell. I'm the community support lead at the Film and TV charity. I spent the last 15 years of my career working in film distribution, but I've also worked as a communications consultant at the mental health charity Mind. I'm working on the whole picture program, specifically at the charity, which is pioneered by and led by the charity, but it's an industry-led 2-year program, which is working to ensure that everyone working in film, TV, and cinema achieves better mental health. My area of work around community support is around improving industry connections and peer support, and ensuring that individuals, particularly freelancers, have the tools and resources they need to support their well-being.
Cool. Yeah, I think that this work is super important, isn't it? It's integral to like the coalition of change's work, and like when I
Mhm.
worked on when I was involved in the BAME TV task force, who have now rebranded to be inclusive. It was a very recurring theme that bullying and harassment was a major problem in the industry. So the charity has launched new services that emerged from mental health study. What is the connection that you guys have seen between bullying and harassment and mental health?
Yeah, that's right. So, well, I know we'll come on to talk about the services specifically, but the mental health study that you mentioned is our kind of groundbreaking looking glass research that the charity commissioned in 2019. It really responded to concerns around mental health in the industry at the time. And the findings around mental health were pretty devastating, I think it's fair to say.
Mm,
I don't think it's being particularly hysterical to say that we are in the midst of a mental health crisis. And it found that the 87% of people had a mental health problem working behind the scenes in film, TV, and cinema, and that compares to 65%, an average of 65% in the wider UK economy. So that just really shows that there's something quite specific about the working conditions and culture in the industry. And then with bullying, this research showed that nearly 9 in 10 workers have told us they've experienced or witnessed bullying or harassment happen in the workplace. So 9 in 10, which is, I mean, that's almost everyone,
that's
right?
quite a lot. 90% is a very large number.
Exactly. And we know that there's wider research out there that shows that bullying can have real direct impacts on your mental well-being, and I'm sure anyone that's experienced that will know that to be true to some extent. And it's been found to cause symptoms of depression, anxiety, and other stress-related issues that also impact your capacity to do your job and live your life, right? And importantly, it directly impacts the talent pipeline, right? Just from a purely
Mm,
economic point of view and thinking about the business, workers who experience bullying, we found are more likely to consider leaving the industry. And I think the other important thing to note, particularly that comes from our research, is that look, 9 in 10 means that it's a pervasive, overwhelming problem, right? So
yeah.
it's a cultural problem, but that it's important to acknowledge it does also affect groups disproportionately, depending on identity and experience as well. So we know that two-thirds of female respondents to our Looking Glass research said they have experienced bullying, and that compares with half of male respondents. We found that freelancers were more likely to experience bullying and harassment than their employed colleagues, and also 69% of Black men had experienced bullying compared with 50% of all male respondents. So I just wanted to kind of read those out, those statistics, because I think that's important to think about how impacts people differently and disproportionately as well.
Yeah, I think like one of the what we did actually when I was in the BAME TV task force, who've now rebranded to be inclusive. Like one of the main sources of like statistics for our letter was the Looking Glass report, because it was number one, it was shocking for just anyone, and then when you looked into the details and then saw if with marginalized groups, it becomes so much more of a problem. Especially, we all saw the Beck 2's Unseen on Screen thing last year, and there were so many terrible stories that were documented in that. And really, I think the shocking thing was everyone kind of could recognize an experience that they had either witnessed or been victim of in it. What do you think the reasons are for it
Mm.
being such a big problem in our industry?
So we know, for example, that particularly one of the reasons why it persists is that people are really afraid to speak out, and that, that people are afraid that they won't be hired again, that they'll be thought as troublesome, or they'll lose work. And that also there's a real culture of toughness in our industry, and that it's not just production and post-production. I experienced that working in distribution, even that kind of bleeding through that, and that it's a badge of honor to survive really harsh working conditions.
Yeah, I've actually heard recruiters even say, like, oh, maybe they're just not like, you've got to be cut out for this industry. And it's like, but we're not going to get the best talent if you have to be a certain type of personality, because creativity is felt by loads of different types of people, and some people are just a bit more soft.
This is also meant to be an industry where your creativity is allowed to flourish. Why should you have to like get in the trenches in order to do that? It's meant to be fun,
Mm.
it's meant to be vibrant, and it is a lot of those things too as well, let's remember.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that to an extent, like everyone comes into TV wide-eyed, very enthusiastic, bushy-tailed, and then like a few years down, you meet the same people, and there's a completely like brokenness to
Well,
them,
yeah,
and
yes, that was going to be actually what I was thinking when you said that, is that of course it's going back to that retention of talent thing as well, and we know that then there's an exodus of talent, because so you're not retaining those people, and
mm,
then that particularly impacts underrepresented groups, or people that are where they're intersecting against all these particular problems all at once. So the people that have
yeah,
that 10 times over are obviously the people that are going to find it tougher, because it's geared against them in a number of ways. This really resonates with me, which is the informal working structures. So these are kind of
mm.
like really fundamental things about the way that the industry's built, right? So
I always call it the Wild West.
do you? Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah, it can feel like that, can't it? And I think, yeah, that those informal working structures are how people are hired. I know I've benefited from knowing people who know people. I've not had to interview for certain jobs. I've, you know, those are that's quite normal. Um,
Hmm.
you've got over 50% of the workforce is freelance. They're not necessarily going to be around constantly. There's that lack of repercussion, a lack of training, a lack of HR being available. When you start to list these things, you can really see how this is creating a situation where
Yeah.
incidents can happen.
And I think also, to an extent, like having those people who might create a problem one place, it doesn't there's no HR to know that they are going to come back and to go to a completely different company, maybe country, and then create that same problem. So we never really notice the problem people.
Yeah, and I think that's also, so you're also talking about no repercussions as well. And I think one of the issues, I've definitely seen it working in film, um, and working on quite high profile films as well as little independent films too. But there's a real imbalance of power in the industry, and that can start with the sort of reverence that we give on screen talent and stars. And a lot of people aren't held accountable for their actions, and that then bleeds down. That comes from the top, and then people think certain behaviors are acceptable, and they're not. And people are too kind of afraid to, look at Harvey Weinstein, look at the behaviors that were able to be allowed to happen by a number of people that helped kind of facilitate him almost.
I think also because of the way the industry is structured as well, isn't it? It's lots and lots of companies doing lots and lots of different things for lots and different broadcasters. All of them have their own kind of policies, and then you have these freelancers who are working in between them. So there's no consistency, I guess, and that leads to a problem of there not being a common way of things being dealt with.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And I think the good thing about programs like this and the Coalition for Change, which we're a part of as well, is that these are bringing cross-sector conversations and cross-industry conversations and connecting people up to talk about a common issue. So that makes me hopeful that these things we've been, talking about all the terrible things that are happening. That makes me hopeful that it can get better when you have these things, movements for change in place.
So you've got some new services that you've launched.
Mhm.
Do you want to outline them for us?
I will outline them. Um,
Outline's
mhm.
such a formal word, isn't it? Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so just launched three new services which are designed to support people who are experiencing bullying either directly or indirectly. And they are, I think it's important to say that, like all of our services, it's completely free for you to use if you're working behind the scenes in film and TV, and they're completely confidential. And that's really important. And we found that so many people, a real barrier to seeking help is that concern in the industry about people knowing your business or worried about speaking out. So these three services are Spot, which is a digital recording tool. Number two is our bullying pathway service, where you can speak to a trained counsellor and someone who has worked within the industry to talk things through and get specific support and information around legal aspects, HR aspects, things like practical help as well as kind of that therapeutic help. And then the anti-bullying directory, which is really a one-stop shop for sort of the information and resources you might need within the industry and also outside of it.
So, Spot, how can people use it? Where can they find it? And what can they use it for?
So Bot is, as I say, you can find it on our website, and it's a recording tool. So rather than a reporting tool, it is something very personal to you. It's a digital record which no one else can see. We don't have access. Spot don't have access to what you've added on there. It is guided through the
Mhm.
use of AI to ask you appropriate questions to help you guide yourself through recording something that's happened or something you've witnessed. It's useful for two reasons: being able to write something down. It sounds quite basic, perhaps, but it's useful from a record point of view, which is always important when you and any lawyer would advise you to keep a record of something that's happened to you that you might want to follow up on later, and as much information as you can retain in that, the better. And Spot also allows you to upload into one place, so it's all there, and you don't necessarily need to do anything with that. But it can be accessed at a later date, and it can be something that you may need to refer to if you want to approach something at work informally as well as formally. So that's a useful
Yeah.
record in that way.
I guess also like seeing something written down means that don't need to brush it under the rug as much as you might, because you've
Yeah.
seen how bad it is, and you're not just feeling it. I think a lot of people in TV tell themselves, "Oh, maybe I'm being too sensitive, maybe this,
Mm.
maybe that," and give excuses for other people's behavior. But I guess recording that and writing it down and being able to look back at how that problem behavior has affected you probably helps you as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's really particularly useful to our industry, I think, because we're talking about this informal culture and inform that's sort of sparked by informal working practices, and they make it really easy to doubt what's happening to you. I think
Yeah.
that you work in
Gaslighting,
this.
isn't it?
Yeah,
gaslighting is so common,
yeah, but
right?
it's that happens on an individual level, but it happens on a working culture level, like on a
Mm.
behavior, like what's accepted and what's normalized within the industry. So I think you're right. Seeing it written down and going through that process can actually make it more real, which
Mhm.
is actually a helpful part of dealing with it. And that kind of brings me on to my next point about this not only being a practical tool but a therapeutic tool, which is what you're suggesting. And I think when you're in the middle of a fast-paced working environment, it can be difficult to order what's happening to you and work it out. Again, Spot is really useful for that side of things too.
So when should a person who's working in that industry use Spot?
So it can be for the individual that is experiencing bullying, but it can
Mhm.
also be for someone who's witnessed bullying. And I think it's important to remember that because we often see a lot of that behavior happening. And it does have a well-being effect on you too, even if you're not being directly targeted in the behavior.
It's the environment it creates, isn't it?
Exactly, and that has an effect that we've normalized so much, but it really does. So it can be used in that respect, and it can be used at something that's happened to you in the past. You can go through and process that. But we do recommend that if you are experiencing something at the moment, it's a really good idea to kind of record and log what is happening to you, so it's really fresh in your mind as well, and start that as soon as possible. And you can come back to it if you need to.
How would you go about completing a record on Spot?
So it's all really easy to navigate. It's very user friendly. You can go via our website and then you can just follow the simple steps. You're guided through the process. And as I said, it all functions with AI. So you are prompted to go through creating your record. When that's done, it's really up to you what you want to do with it. And we really want all of these services to empower people to support themselves and take action if they want to, but it's really about people feeling that they can take the next step, or that they have sort of taken any kind of step, because I think it can feel really
Yeah.
overwhelming when it's happening to you.
And if you have like this record of things, but or even if you don't have the record of things, but you want to elevate it higher,
Mm,
or you want
mm,
to be able to um maybe have a personal touch,
mm.
what's the other steps that you could take after maybe creating this record?
So this is kind of where the package of services that we're talking about that we've launched are really complementary, I think, because you can access via our support line our bullying pathway service, which, as I mentioned, is a real life person, and they can help you talk through what possible actions you may want to take. But very much,
Mhm.
they're not going to offer you, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. It will be about helping you and empowering you to make the decisions you want to make or don't want to make. That's
Mhm.
that's part of it. And then the other thing is our anti-bullying directory, which has a real wealth of information there that can help you work out
Okay.
next steps.
One thing I did want to check is, can you use Bot to record instances of racism or
Mhm.
harassment as well?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's all about how it makes you feel. And there are some legal considerations around whether it's bullying or whether it's discrimination against a protected characteristic protected by the Equality Act. And you can find out more information about that on our directory if you're thinking about that. But it's really anyone who is a target of any kind of bullying, no matter how you describe it in terms of legal terms. It's really about anything that like that kind of behavior.
Homophobia,
Exactly.
ableism,
Ableism.
all of those kind of things that are real issues in our industry.
Exactly. That either you've experienced or you've witnessed happening.
Yeah, I think ableism is a big thing that's being spoken about right now as well,
Yeah.
because it's so underrepresented in our industry as a whole, and a real area where I think people feel like when they are disabled, there is a target on their backs a little bit, and assumptions that are made, wrong assumptions. So we've received a question over social media from Paul. It goes like this. I see you have a tool which helps people record privately their experiences of bullying, which is great. But how can you help take action? This is the gnarly issue for freelancers, as no one wants to put their own neck on the line in case they get a reputation as a moaner.
I think Paul is right in that this is a real issue, and it goes back to what we were talking about at the start of this around the cultural expectations, and you don't want to get this reputation about speaking up or being difficult or rocking the boat or not being tough enough, and that is a real problem that can't be addressed on its own with tools like this. But in terms of taking action, I think it's important to say that even making a record on spot or calling our billing pathway service is taking action. It may not necessarily have consequences for other people, but it certainly it should be seen as taking a step to kind of take control of the situation, even if it's trying to manage your own thoughts and feelings about something. So that I would say that first of all. But then in terms of, okay, what do I do with it? I actually want to report it or I want to address it at work. There are, again, I'd point people towards our bullying directory, which I know we'll talk about in more detail, but that signpost people. In fact, there's a section which is what action can I take?
So, shall we talk about the anti-bullying directory? Because I know that you've been involved a lot in the makeup of this, and so it'd
Mm.
be good to hear more about it and what it's going to be used for and how someone uses it.
Yeah, so it's really recognizing the fact that people have been working in the industry to try and tackle and prevent bullying and harassment and discrimination in the workplace for years. There's obviously clearly a lot more work to be done, but there's real leaders in this space like Beck2 and the BFI. But lots of these resources exist in different places, and what we wanted to do was just try and make this one-stop shop that is easy to navigate, so it's not too overwhelming with thousands and thousands of things.
Yeah, it's good to have like a transparent place where you can just see everything that you need. It sometimes gets a bit overwhelming. So, who can use the directory?
Individuals who may be experiencing bullying, but also smaller productions and workplaces, particularly who don't have these, robust HR departments.
Yeah, because some indies only have like three or four people, right? And as staff, and so they can't really afford HR in the same way that someone like BBC Studios or ITV Studios can. What does the directory contain in it?
We thought about why would you be coming to a website to find out about bullying in the industry, and so we broke it down into 6 questions. Am I being bullied? What action can I take? The third thing is, how can I support my mental health?
Mhm.
What can I do to support others? And then, how do I prevent others from being bullied at work? And with that in mind, that's really thinking about those, what we were saying, those small businesses, those people starting up productions who don't necessarily have a robust policy in place, but we link out to the BFI's resources that they have, the policy templates that Beck2 and the BFI have, and then finally, where can I find out about industry change? There's a real desire to change things in the industry right now, and there's lots of organisations and work that's being done. So we really try and signpost those.
So, like if there's something that I go and look at it and I see that there is something that I think should be included, how would I suggest that to you guys?
Hmm. So yeah, we really, really sincerely welcome feedback and suggestions, and our whole approach is very industry led. So we do really mean that. But you can email bullying@filmtvcharity.org.uk, and that's a good place to send any suggestions, which we review periodically. We can't promise to include everything. We do want it to be really easy for people to navigate as well. So
Mhm.
we don't want it to become too overwhelming. This needs to be a constant conversation. We need to be constantly reviewing it. So, and then likewise, if there's any feedback on Spot or our other services, then we really welcome that. Good feedback as well as bad feedback, or any suggestions and things like that. Just anything you can get in touch via that email
Yeah, you're
address.
very freelancer led as an organization, aren't you? So you want freelancers to feel involved and like they can have an impact on the work that you're doing.
Yes, because we're sort of sit slightly outside of things. We like to position ourselves as a safe and non-judgmental kind of entity. We really invite that feedback, particularly from freelancers. That's just such a huge proportion of our workforce.
Yeah, it's really great, like all the work that you guys have been doing since the Looking Glass report, and actually, see the tangible things that have happened,
Mm.
especially after the year that we've had, and the mental health of lots of freelancers really taking a nosedive. Um, I know that this is like part of a plan, really, isn't it? So, like,
Mm.
do you, where do you guys see all this first step going on in the future?
Yeah, you're right. This is all the bullying work that we're doing is one part of a whole program around the sort of key fundamentals that make a difference to our mental health. And with this work, we're really piloting a lot of this, and this is one of the reasons why. I do say sincerely, get in touch with feedback because we are going through and adapting these services and really want to listen to what you need most. So yeah, we're continuing to develop these services, and as you say, this is really part of a puzzle. And there's lots of other bits of work that we're doing around mental health. We're looking at that culture side of things that we talked about.
Hmm.
That's come up time and time again in our chat. We're looking at how to address the kind of endemic industry cultures and behaviors. And we're also working to develop a toolkit for mentally healthy productions. And then the work I'm doing is around facilitating better peer support and industry connections to really kind of drive that sense of community, particularly for freelancers who are so isolated and often in between projects not got access to support and peers and things like that they need to keep well.
And one final question to leave us on. Do you have any advice for someone who's going through something right now and hesitating on what they should do?
Mm. Yeah, I'm well, I would say that you're not alone. It doesn't necessarily make that easier, but the research that we talked about at the beginning of our chat shows that nearly 90% of people working in our industry have experienced a mental health problem. So there is every chance that the guy that's working next to you or the woman that's across from you has had experienced something either now or previously. So it is not uncommon to be experiencing difficulties. And I would urge you to talk to someone first and foremost as a first step. Talk to someone you trust. That could be someone nothing to do with the industry. It could be a friend. It could be a family member. And there is always our support line, which you can access either by calling the number or by going on our website and starting a chat. And that if you can't, if you don't know where to start, that can be a really good place to start in terms of seeking support. But we don't want anyone to feel like they have to go through something on their own. So it's really important to know that you're not alone and support is available.
Great. I think that's it for us. We hope you learnt a bit more about Spot and the directory and the Bullying Pathway service that the film and TV charity have got out for you guys. If you want to keep up to date with all the things that are going on at the film and TV charity, feel free to follow them on at Film TV Charity.
Thank you for listening to myself and Abby today. The Film and TV Charity is working with individuals and organisations to eliminate bullying and harassment in film and TV. To join us on that mission, get in touch. If you or someone you know has been affected by the issues raised in this podcast, you can call our support line on 0800 054 0000 or visit filmtvcharity.org.uk.